actually do?
How can be a business idea both economically and environmentally sustainable?
How can I link my engineering degree to a passion for the sea?
What is Fab Lab?
How does someone run a successful entrepreneurship without compromising their ethics?
What does a social entrepreneur actually do?
How people far from entrepreneurship world can invest themselves in sustainable entrepreneurship.
Hi, I'm Laura, a speaker for Space, and I'd like to know what school subjects young people can take to get into the blue economy.
Can you define some of the more difficult business language?
Hello, my question is how to combine the general will of growth and the sustainability of the resources.
How is it possible to become an entrepreneur in a post-COVID world?
What is the blue economy?
What support can young people get for starting up a business with post-pandemic uncertainty?
If I live inland, why should I care about the blue economy?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for waiting. As with all of these things, technology sometimes gets in the way. So apologies for the late start, but we're just going to get cracking from now on. So before I introduce myself, I would like to invite everyone to use the interpretation translation tool at the bottom of your screen, at the right-hand side, probably about here-ish. You will see a little icon that says interpretation. So please select that one and select the language that you would prefer to listen to this conversation in. And hopefully everything will be understood. I'd also like to let you know that this session is being recorded. So to be very clear and to make everyone aware that this event is being recorded. So if you want to make sure that you cannot be seen or heard on those recordings, then please turn off your video and mute yourself. Just to make sure. If you would like to leave the call at no point, no shade, that's fine. You can head off. We'll make the recording available for you after so you don't miss a thing. All righty, now that's out of the way. Welcome. My name is Callum Elliott. Pleasure to meet you all. I work for Brest Metropole in France and for Space in the UK. I'm kind of a double agent in that way. And I'll be your presenter. I'm your presenter for this evening. Tonight is the first of 3 roundtable discussions. They are collaborations between AYCH partner organizations that target specific areas that are important to young people. So all of the expert speakers you will see and hear over the next 3 days are young people under the age of 30. So these events are for young people, by young people, for the future. Yeah, but why are we doing it? Very good question. Thank you very much for asking that question. Why are we doing it? The Youth Summit is taking place at the very end of the Atlantic Youth Creative Hubs project. That is the AYCH. So you'll see the logos up in the top corner, AYCH Youth Summit. It's run over the last 4 years, and the Youth Summit is this big old celebration of the people, of the projects, and the creativity of the AYCH project. This roundtable discussion and tomorrow on Tuesday night and on Wednesday night, we will explore important themes for creativity that will be useful over the next decade of our lives. So each event will produce 10 propositions that we, as the AYCH project, believe are necessary for a brighter future. So 10 propositions at 3 events means 30 propositions in totals, quick maths. And that these propositions are established by young people, as I said, under the age of 30, which means they're going to be followed by the year 2030. Lots of 30s, 30 propositions by young people under the age of 30 to be followed by the year 2030. So now you know why we're here, you know who I am, so let's get on with it. So tonight, welcome to challenge number 1. Tonight, we are talking about sustainable entrepreneurship and the blue economy. Now, don't worry about those big, long words. It can be quite intimidating. We're going to clarify everything as we go. And if you have any questions at all throughout this entire session, post them into the chat feature in this Zoom, and we'll do our best to get to those as and when. We have a panel of 4 speakers, and 2 of those are based in the UK. They're from Space Youth Services, based in Devon in the southwest, and 2 of those are from Brest Metropole, based in France. And let's introduce them. So when I say your names, folks, give us a little wave. So from the UK, we've got Hugh McCann. It's just a straight yes from Hugh. Yes, I am Hugh. We also have Laura Moe. Laura, your little picture behind your face is backwards. So at the moment you are Om Aruel. So flip that one over and that's cool. That's Laura. Hello, Laura. We also have Sylvain from Brest. Hello, Sylvain. And we also have Mariam from Brest as well. Marianne doesn't have a background because it doesn't work for some reason, but it will. She is real, she is there, and she is representing Brest Metropole tonight. So Hugh, Laura, and Mariam will be speaking to me in English this evening, but Sylvain will be answering his questions in French. So I'd like to make it really clear that everyone watching, use that translation feature. If you're not bilingual, you're gonna need it. So please turn that one on, select a language that you'd like.
The streets feel alive. We're mixed with life. Ghost town of life. Life shines bright.
So each of the speakers has an area of expertise and experience in either social entrepreneurship or in the blue economy. And so we'll hear a lot more from those over the next 90 minutes. But believe me, I've met them all. They're lovely people and they know their stuff. So they're good people to listen to. So up to this point, we've had a lot from me. You've heard a lot of my voice. So let's just get into the discussions and get the conversation started. So let's start with Hugh. Can you introduce yourself quickly to the group?
Hello everyone, thanks for having me. I'm Hugh, based in Exeter in the UK, and for a number of about 3 years now I've been making art projects that have drifted towards trying to address sort of larger social problems beyond just making art for the purpose of sort of art.
Cool. Well, pleasure to meet you, Hugh. Welcome to Challenge 1. So Hugh, we've had a lot of big words so far: sustainable entrepreneurship, blue economies, but you're here to talk to us about the entrepreneurship side. So can you please explain it to me like I'm 5. What is a social entrepreneur and what do they actually do?
Cool, yeah, it was quite interesting to think about this question. I've not thought about it that much before. And it occurred to me that the term social entrepreneur kind of implies that there's something antisocial about regular entrepreneurship. And that kind of made me scratch my head a bit. Sort of Wikipedia suggested that it's an entrepreneurial endeavor that seeks to address social, cultural, or environmental or other issues through some kind of business. So the kind of closest definition I was thinking about was this new term that seems to be around a lot: corporate social responsibility. The idea that big corporations have some kind of responsibility that they've just figured out that they need to address. I guess my definition of social entrepreneurship is it's corporate social responsibility, but without the need for the corporation in the first place.
Cool. That's a really good way of thinking about it. So we quite often think that the corporations are the ones that need to make the changes, but hey, what about the guy with the boots on the ground? What about the everyday human being? So my next question for you, Hugh, is that many of the AYCH partner institutions, including here at Space down in the southwest of the UK, we're fortunate enough to have, or we're currently building, maker spaces, things like Fab Labs. Can you explain what a Fab Lab is and how it could help entrepreneurs such as yourself, Hugh?
Cool, yeah, so Fab Lab, again, that was quite interesting for me to actually look up what the word means. I always thought it stood for Fabulous Lab. It turns out it's actually Fabrication Laboratory, which makes a lot more sense. And effectively, it's a space where there are tools that traditionally, maybe 20 or so years ago, would have only been available to big manufacturers that have since been made available on a much more affordable level for smaller businesses or individuals. So those kind of tools, really sort of classic ones for Fab Labs at the moment being 3D printers, CNC machines, vinyl cutters, maybe small injection molders, vacuum formers, anything that allows someone to turn an idea into a physical prototype or thing. So it's basically a way of turning an idea into a physical thing without the need for enormous investment or integration into a larger business.
I'm actually in a Fab Lab right now.
Nice.
If I pull back the curtain, I've got a 3D printer right behind me, and that's used for creating prototypes down here in Devon. And actually, this is the very Fab Lab that Hugh started using the machinery to create his prototype. So how can a Fab Lab help someone like yourself?
So basically, I was thinking it's two things really. It's the really obvious thing being the equipment. So kind of, I guess in a way, a sort of decentralized means of manufacturing where you can very independently access pretty exciting technology that's at the sort of cutting edge of digital manufacturing with almost no bureaucracy attached to it. And the second thing being the sort of community around a Fab Lab. So these places seem to attract groups of like-minded people who are all quite curious, quite energetic, quite creative. And then that community holds so much knowledge, which makes the Fab Lab so much bigger than just a room full of tools. So I guess it's those two things are kind of essential for entrepreneurship, is access to actually turn the idea into the physical thing, but almost more importantly, access to that community, whether it's online through, I guess, things like this, where lots of people who have similar interests can coalesce around something, and potentially also just on a really practical level, if there's someone who knows how a certain machine works and they've got a vested interest in being in the Fab Lab, that knowledge is going to pass on a lot easier. So it's a kind of democratization of maybe what was once quite esoteric and difficult to access technical knowledge.
And also just building on what you were saying earlier on, in that social entrepreneurship is corporate responsibility, but without the corporate. You're in a Fab Lab, and with building that community, you can share that responsibility with each other, and you can support each other in your ventures to make them as impactful, I suppose, as you want them to be. So thank you very much, Hugh, for answering those questions. I'm now going to throw on to our second speaker, and our first speaker from France, Marion. Hello. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my pleasure. Okay, so I'm Marion. I used to travel around the world for years, and I follow AYCH, and then I start to study with the Open Factory, which is the Fab Lab in Brest. And so I will have to go until June, and it's about transition and what else. I really hope you will understand my English tonight, and I'm really sorry if not, but just stop me in case.
Your English is great, Marion. Thank
Okay,
you very
cool.
much.
Thank
yeah.
you.
I'm understanding it.
So here I am. I'm trying to be an entrepreneur in sustainable work, because I think it's just my values, and I will try to answer the question, your question, Calum, next, because I think it will be easier to me too.
Cool. Yeah, nice. So you're trying to build on your own personal ethics and your opinions on our global environment, and do that through your work.
I wish to build it with many people, to be honest with you. I really think, I really want to live in a collective place, because I think it's a way to see the future as well. we have to share around us. We cannot stay into our own place with 2-4 people, just one family. I mean, we can still do that, but we have to also think about many other ways to live our life and about sharing all the tools, all the spaces and everything around us. And it will make our life really easier, I think.
Cool. So that's kind of what Hugh was saying earlier on with the Fab Lab community and the sharing of knowledge and resources.
Exactly.
That's wicked.
To be honest with you, I didn't know Fab Lab was like this before. For me, it was just a tech thing. And when I start the formation, when I start school with them, I really understood that Fab Lab is here to try to put all the transition together. It could be ecological, numeric, and social, and that is great about Fab Lab also.
Mega. So we're sort of talking about it, but my question specifically for you, Marin, is what difference, what impact can new business make to environmental issues?
Okay. Alors, to be honest, I write my answer, and I think, I hope you will understand what I'm saying.
Okay.
And I will start with an observation because I really think we have to. And so it just for decades, we have seen increasing awareness of global warming. We are starting to accept that our consumption of fossil fuel and our even animal husbandry is inadequate, and we are headed for disaster. So the context of COVID put us in front of ecological, health, and human challenges. It has brought out the vital needs to the population, on which we depend on external dependence in order to be able to meet them. And another point that I want to say before to prove that it's a good way to think, that we can see all around the world the young generation in the social industry to talk about climate changes. And all this young generation, we have to listen them, and we have to look at them to see how we have to react of it. It's in the new consumer, they have consciousness, and all around us in media, in television, we can see all this awareness. So what I want to say is just like everyone starts to see it, everyone have to, and if entrepreneurs want to live in present and they shouldn't think that the profit is will be the best for them. They have the ethic is starting to take more place on profit.
So entrepreneurs should start to prioritize the ethical considerations over the economic ones.
Exactly.
That's actually something we're going to come to a little bit later. We're going to see what the audience think on that question later on. So social entrepreneurship, as you've just described, it's hugely ethical. It's really ethics based. So how can someone from any background, with any level of education, with any level of experience, how can they support that creative entrepreneurship in the future?
Sorry. Okay. How can they do that? It's kind of easy because they just have to live in these different places that the city should, like Fab Lab. There is many ways to. Sorry, I'm sorry. I write everything, and I really want to find it because otherwise I'm lost.
It's okay.
Okay. As I said earlier, the future has to be considered by all. The success of this objective depends on the comprehension and the involvement of each. Everybody is concerned. So, after this consciousness, I think thinking about the environment has also become trendy. It's clear. And yet only that aren't changing, but there are the same with less resources. So cities are becoming organized around this notion, I think. And I will have a point. I'm with the Open Factory, the Fab Lab, where I follow my studies. We work on Fab City. Fab City, I don't know if you know the program Fab City. It's about dreaming the city of tomorrow. It's inclusive. All the actors of the city are connected in order to include everyone. It's one of the value. And there is many programs like this who can help the creative and the innovation, even innovative thing, project, and when, I don't know how it is in all your countries, but I know that in France, we have many help if we take the ecological value on our business. There is many people who will help you. There is many doors will be open to you, and you can even have some money to create it. So it's really a good time to think about it. So you can be helped, so you just have to enjoy it.
Well, that's a really good point there to end on, Marianne, because that's my next question for Hugh, is going to be, let's go back to Hugh for this question. So social entrepreneurs, if you're starting a business, you quite often need a lot of help, like what Marianne was saying, that there are structures out there to support and help entrepreneurs on their way. So how can established businesses, startups, individuals, makerspaces, fab labs, everyone involved in the world of business, how can they actually help? What actions can they do to support us, the individual?
Cool. Yes. So I think these are all things that I've experienced personally. So I might be missing a few things out. But the first thing that came to mind was the legitimization of, especially with young people, but with everyone, the legitimization of a career in the creative arts, entrepreneurship, things that don't necessarily fit into a prescribed, neat 9-to-5 kind of existence. And I think you achieve that very easily just by having a community of people who might be a few years ahead or have moved in a different direction and had success with creativity, with entrepreneurship. I think especially for young people beginning their careers, to see that other people have done it is one of the most empowering things. And it's something that's very easily done because it can just be about sharing stories, which is free. So I guess that's like the easiest thing, is letting people know that it is possible through example and through the sharing of knowledge. I think direct access to resources, that's definitely something I've experienced with AYCH. So basically accepting that when people are in an early stage of their career and they're being creative, that they probably will fail quite a few times and that will cost money, but that money is an investment. So allowing people to access resources, whether it be technology or just cash, without overly bureaucratizing it and attaching too many strings, because then it kind of then it starts to become more of a kind of classical job rather than opportunity to be experimental. So putting faith in people, I think, is a very difficult thing, especially when money's involved, but is kind of essential. I think having a community, again, that's just another super important thing. So if say a small organization wants to help someone, if they can set them up with a couple of contacts, and it might just be that they have a quick chat every so often, almost like informal mentoring, just that feeling of being within a community of people who are all taking what might at times, especially early on, feel like an equally insane risk in terms of their life, because unless you have a huge amount of money, then trying to be an entrepreneur is taking an enormous risk. But when you feel like you're in a community of other people taking that risk, it becomes a lot more tolerable. So I think that's another big part of it. So I guess the two elements are, for me personally, but I'm sure I've missed some stuff out that's been useful for others: direct access to resources and having a bit of faith put in you, and a system whereby other people's stories and journeys are easily visible so that you know it can be done.
Cool. It's a bit like being at school. when you join a new school, you can see the years above you and you can kind of see where you're going next. So it's not so intimidating in that way. Cool, thank you very much, Hugh. Before I ask my final question to the speakers on social entrepreneurship, the audience here, don't think you're escaping. You are escaping questions being asked in your direction. So we're going to throw a poll onto your screen. So please, everyone, select one answer from this poll. So when it's launched, the question will be, when starting a new business, entrepreneurs should prioritize either making money or environmental sustainability. This is something that Marion spoke about earlier on. So you can choose one or the other. Are you going to prioritize making money, or are you going to prioritize environmental sustainability? I'm just going to launch that one again. So please relog your votes. And I'm going to leave that up for about 60 seconds. Let you think about that one, and we'll see all the votes coming in, see the percentage go one way or the other. And I'm excited to see what you think. Yeah. So we have something like 50 participants on this call at the moment. So I'll let it get up to about 30 votes or so, and then I will call it a day there. So I've got 26 in. So if anyone hasn't voted yet, please jump in. 27, 28. Just a couple more of you. Translators, please vote as well. And say a big thanks to the translators for coming in and joining in. Without them, we wouldn't be able to speak to all of you. So thank you to them. All righty, so that is our 60 seconds. I'm going to end the poll there, and here are the results. So it's actually a little bit closer than I thought it would be. 57% of people go for environmental sustainability. 43% of you go for making money. So I'm just going to ask a quick question to Hugh. In your experience, my friend, is it possible to do both, or do you have to choose one or the other at some point?
Yeah, I definitely think it's possible to do both. I think that was a really tough question, I think, because you can't sort of do one without the other. If you don't do the environmental sustainability, then it might not be social entrepreneurship. It might just be entrepreneurship. And then if you don't make money, you can't do anything. So I think you can definitely do them at the same time. And I don't think it being sustainable, I have no idea, but I imagine 15 years ago that may have been a hindrance. But I think now that markets are changing and there is a market for it, it can actually be an advantage. And I'm sort of wondering if the goal of social entrepreneurship would be to create a world where it's not called social entrepreneurship, it's just entrepreneurship. So yeah. I think now they can go hand in hand. But perhaps there's a memory of a time where it might not have been so congruous, and that might still be haunting people's idea about the cost associated with more ethical decision making. Cool.
Thank you, Hugh. So my final question on our social entrepreneur topic is going to go back to Marion. So Marion, the AYCH project, H, we support young people, and some of them are in the audience right now. Hello, young people. We support them in their innovations, their creativity, through our incubation programs, our creative jams, our opportunity to think, our support. So creativity is a big focus. How should social entrepreneurs use creativity in their problem solving to support their business growth?
Okay, I'm gonna start with as I said before, I think really the economic model is changing, so we'll have new consumer with new values that we didn't have in the 90s, but we start to think about it. For sure, maybe you won't make money in the first year when you make your businesses, but I think with the situation today, we have to think 5 years beyond us. Not only the first year, but really what will people want in 5-7 years? What's their mind? And I really think if you want to start a business today, you have to think about it. you can escape. You cannot escape because everything is moving so fast, and we can see with the pandemic, it's moving really fast, and it won't be as it was before. And then I want to take an example about creativity and business. Here in Concarneau, not far from my home, there is a few students will start the low-tech lab. It's after engineering studies, some students decide to invest in buying a boat to promote low-tech. And instead of choosing a well-paid job, they choose to follow their values. By their money and some other people money who really believed on the thing. And today it's become a success, and it's financed by many sponsors. So they have a stable economic model, are living life according to their values, and also have a major impact on adaptation through better use. So for me, they are the proof a social and environmental success, because they make money, but they follow their values. And in the beginning, they weren't sure, and they could choose another way. They could have really a well-paid job, but I mean, I think it's really an example for everyone. And if everyone is concerned by this philosophy, I really have hope for tomorrow, and the new generation is going to receive that. So yeah.
Oh, that's a really lovely case study. I'm glad that you found something concrete. So we can sit here talking about how we want the future to be and how everyone should be sort of following their values. But it's nice to hear, people that have done it and made a success out of it. So thank you very much, Marion. So we've got a bit of time for some questions. If anyone in the audience has a question they want to ask Hugh or Marion about social entrepreneurship and sustainability, please type it into the chat, and we'll do what we can to get to it. We've got a couple of minutes. If you'd like to, you could use the reactions feature here. You could pop a hand up in the Zoom, and you can unmute and ask your question verbally if you'd like to, but only if you pop your hand up first, if anyone has a question for any of our speakers. I'll give you probably about 60 seconds to make up the mind if you have a question or not. Otherwise, we will just move on with the event this evening. I understand that we're coming from loads of different places around Europe and maybe even the world. So if you need a couple of seconds to think about translating your question, feel free to ask it in your native language, and we surely have someone in this Zoom that can translate it into English or into French for Hugh and Marion to answer. If not, no worries at all. Right, so we've got a question from Fiona Rourke. Fiona, is your question for Hugh, or is it for Marion, or both?
I think it's just a kind of, it's an open question actually, in terms of what support is missing. I think I'd be quite curious to know from people who are kind of working from the angles that these guys are, if just looking holistically, maybe not just at the program that you've been on, but yeah, where there's holes in the way that we're kind of moving, and how I suppose like those talking about like other generations kind of supporting younger generations to move up through the ranks. What's kind of missing in that space at the moment for you?
Lovely question. Hugh, do you want to kick us off on that one? And then if Marion, if you want to add something, you can jump in afterwards. So let's go, Hugh. What's missing?
A couple of things have come to mind, sort of on a sort of, I guess, like a bigger systemic scale. I think the first thing is probably the way that things are funded. Often funding requires you to know what you're going to have made before you've made it, and that kind of eliminates the ability to actually create something that no one can imagine yet. So I think, I don't know what funders in particular that's addressing, but just in my own experience, that's something that kind of inhibits creativity, but is also trying to fund creativity. So I guess that's just that placing faith in entrepreneurs from the people with the resources, and not adding a layer of bureaucracy to it. And then I guess the other thing is it's kind of and this is a huge thing, but like the sort of the realignment of politics and the economy, and people who are really high up, the big decision makers, realizing that sort of unless there's a new generation of people tackling the really big ideas, it's we're sort of totally screwed. So I think the sort of the repoliticization of economics in the sort of public mind, maybe.
Cool, thank you, Hugh. And Marion, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'm really agree with you. And what is missing? It miss some communities around cities to show that we can do with the other way. Like I will take the example of GAFAM, so Google, Apple, Facebook, and all the things which are the biggest company today in the world. There is an alternative in cities, but it's really scary for people to just stop everything. And I really think, as you say, it's political. So there is lobbies would take many place, and now if it's only about community around the city, we can change the thing and try to find other way to share things together. And so we really have to talk about it more. After to talk about Facebook and all the data we are giving to them, just two of them were enough. So that's what I think. I think people have to find place to talk about it, and it will make it easier for people, for everyone.
Oh, thank you very much. So thank you, Marion. Thank you, Hugh. Thank you, Fiona, for your question. We're going to take a quick break in a minute, and then we're going to move on to our discussion on theme 2 on the blue economies, and Laura and Sylvain will get to have their say. But before I let you go, I have a task for you. So I want everyone to look around the room that you're in. Just look around. Cool. Everything that's in your room eventually will end up in landfill. It will end up on a trash heap. No matter how many times it is reused or recycled, eventually that stuff will end up in landfill. It's a cheery thought. It gets even better when we consider how much of that stuff is going to float around in our oceans. It's going to float around in our oceans before we eventually find it and put it on our trash heaps. So with that in mind, you all have 90 seconds, no more, no less, to collect 2 things from your room. So you need to get up and go and get 2 things. One thing that is most likely to end up in the ocean, and one thing that is least likely to end up in the ocean. You're going to have 30 seconds. I've got a little timer. Your 90 seconds, sorry. Your 90 seconds starts now. Let's find some stuff. 2 things. One thing that is likely to end up in the ocean, and one thing that is not likely to end up in the ocean. I'm going to do it too. All of the speakers, please do it as well. Okay, that's our 3 minutes. 3 minutes are up. I'm going to end that poll, lock in those results. Or someone snuck in just before the end there. And I'm going to share those results with you. So hopefully you can see those results on your screen. So we've got 59% of you think that the item that is least likely to end up in the ocean is the most useful thing, which is kind of the way that it should be. But we've got 41% of you thinking that the one that is most useful is also the most disposable. For example, for me, I've got a little drill bit for drilling into some things. And then I've got some loose plastic, which is probably going to fall off the back of a lorry at some point and end up in the ocean. Could everyone else hold up their 2 items to the camera if you are sharing your screen with me, please? All right. We've got some good stuff floating around. I'm gonna go to who have we got? Let's go to Roy. What two things have you got there, Roy? And can you talk us through which one you find most useful?
This is an old-fashioned analog film canister.
Cool.
It's very useful, but is probably going to end up floating around in the ocean at some point in the future. I can't see, I mean, it's one of those plastic items. I can't see any other way. You know, how would you make one of these? They're slowly dying out because film is not being used. 35mm film is not being used. However, this one is a very precious book. It's precious to me, and I think it'll continue to be precious. So it'll always be kept somewhere.
Right.
My great-great-grandchildren might have it on their shelf. I can't see it going anywhere.
Oh, I love that. Cool. I'm going to jump to one more person. So hold your things up again. I'm just going to see what catches my eye. All right. Sylvain, I'm interested to see what's in your right hand. So Sylvain, what is that?
Ceci est un dé que j'utilise.
This is a dice. The thing I have in my hand is a dice. I think it's for one of my games. For sure, something that I use in my games. And I think that maybe it will end up in the ocean. Yeah, that's what I think.
You think that it will end up in the ocean? Sad times, but cool. It was two cool things going on there. Thank you very much for sharing with us something that you've created. And secondly, hello to the English translator on this call who has had not much to do up to this point. Hello. Good to hear that that's working. So we are going to jump into the next theme. So I'm going to close that poll. Thank you very much, everyone who got up and got some things. I saw a couple of Satsumas on the screen there, which is always nice to see some. So the theme, blue economies. We have Laura, we have Sylvain, but we're going to start with Laura. Laura, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi there, my name is Laura. I've been working with Space to develop a sustainable water bottle product that also accommodates disabilities. So it's firing on all fronts there.
Cool.
I'm hoping to do a degree in geography, and I'm also very interested in the current changing environment, both physically and urban. So, I mean, I'm interested in how this can change locally, and that's how it's related to the blue economy.
Nice one. Thank you very much, Laura. So there are probably plenty of people in the audience today that this is the first time maybe that they've heard the term blue economy. It's not really popularized so much. So it would be really useful, I think, to clear up some of those big questions. So can you please explain the blue economy to me like I was 5 years old?
Okay, yep. So the blue economy really means any job related to the oceans or the seas. This can be anything from conservation and all the way to commercial fishing. Ideally, they're moving towards improving the environment rather than damaging it. And it deals with big areas like climate change as well as ecotourism. And overall, they're trying to make the industry more sustainable for a better future.
Thank you very much. That sounds hugely important. I think we know the rainforests and the oceans. Let's protect those. So what sort of jobs, you touched on it a little bit, what sort of jobs are possible in the blue economies, and how can young people in particular prepare themselves for those jobs?
Yep, so there's marine biologists, all sorts of science areas related to STEM that can be working around studying the oceans, as well as all the way to the local level of sailors and tour guides, divers kind of sometimes just explaining their local culture and communities, especially based around the coast. And there's also in engineering a lot of hydroelectric work to do with offshore wind farms and other sustainable energy sources. I feel that young people who are interested in anything to do with the blue economy will also be interested in conservation, and because oceans, as you said, they play a big part in preventing global warming. And as young people, it secures our futures when we can ensure its safety and health. So I think it's really important for us to be educated, and not just in the classroom taking subjects related to it, but also keeping up with news and current affairs, especially right now with the pandemic, when there's so much time to just look around and be in the natural environment and get closer to nature itself. Yeah, I think that young people should really just go out there, get in touch with nature, and spread it around to their friends and community.
Nice. Educate yourself and yeah, start creating a culture of breaking out of that classroom-based learning. And that's getting quite close to some topics we're going to be covering tomorrow, Laura. So this is a quick plug for Tuesday night's event, which is all about creative education. So if what Laura just said there was tickling your interest, make sure you sign up to tomorrow night's event and come along and hear some more talk about creative education. So I'm going to move on to Sylvain. So Sylvain, please introduce yourself to the group.
My name is Sylvain. I'm in the art school. I'm an art student. I'm actually interested in design. And in design, I'm much into transition design. What does that mean? I'm just trying to drive change. I'm into games, but into games that are called serious games. And I think that games can be a good way to spread our message.
Cool. Thank you, Sylvain. There's a little delay because I'm listening to the translator. So if that happens, that's why. So one of my favorite things in the world is tabletop gaming. So I'm actually very excited just to speak to Sylvain in general, but also particularly related to his games. So you developed a game which helps to teach people about the importance of managing our oceans sustainably. So I think this is a really creative and playful, a literally playful way to engage people in the blue economies. So can you talk a bit about the importance of creative projects like your game?
The most important thing for me in the area of gaming is that you can get together people from all walks of life, people from different professions, but we are a big team working around a game. I have a game that what I want to do with this game is for us to understand the laws of the oceans. At some point, people playing this game will have to put these laws into practice. So we started thinking, how can we create this game? What kind of game could be interesting for the people in this field? What would be more adequate for the message that we want to convey? So the idea started in the World Campus of the Seas. This is a research project, right, that was done here at the University of Britain in France, Breo. And we were there with my team thinking about how could we improve this approach to oceans. So we have gathered all the technical knowledge and technical means from that university. And this blue diplomacy game, what we aim with is to try to create game mechanisms, to have strong visuals, to have a strong design, very attractive, so that players can feel engaged. In this kind of games, it is very important to be fair. And by fair, I mean that there has to be a logic in the narrative, in the storytelling, and the interactions as well of the players, they need to make sense. Also, we take into account all the reactions of the characters. And this is why the technical department has a big impact in the art department. At the same time, the game has to be simple so that it's simple to use and that everybody can understand it. It has to be playful. It has to be pure. It doesn't have to show reality because we want to be able to propose scenarios and situations in which the player can start to reflect and can start thinking.
I mean, I want to play it right now. I don't know, don't know about anyone else, but that's a good sell. Cool. So creating a business, starting a business as a young entrepreneur is, I think, very tricky. I think a lot of people would find it quite hard. If you find it quite easy, good luck. Well done. Most people find it hard. So people tend not to consider their impact on our oceans when they're starting up their new business. But what considerations should all entrepreneurs have, regardless of where they live, what their business is doing? What should they consider for the delicate ocean environments to still create a profitable business?
Well, there's three things that I would like to highlight. First of all, they need to be aware of the situation. They also need to, sorry, but we need to know where they come from. They need to know about the products that come from the sea. They need to be respectable of these products. And in order to know these things, it has to be as realistic as possible. And at the same time, we can create a second brand if the first project is successful and you can get them to understand how the sea works, then you can start thinking about creating a second brand. So another thing that I think is important is that it's a business and you need to be aware that it's a business and that it has to grow. So think about the transportation, for instance. How can you go from point A to point B in a job setting, right? What's the impact in the oceans? How can we try with people not having to drive to go from point A to from point B? All of these things you can learn in the game. In the game, we've been trying to put as many scenarios as possible. We do this with some resins that we fabricate. The program could be done in a fab lab. It can be done with open data. And the interesting thing is that any country can import this tool, can use this, and they can print it out. And me, in my case, I'm a freelancer, right? By the way, when I travel somewhere, I try to use the bus. I always take my meal from home. So perhaps I'm not the best person to talk about the third age, but maybe Laura can help me with that, because I think that we can put our heads together and try to don't know, could you please help me, Laura, with this question?
Cool. Thank you, Sylvain. It's throwing it over to Laura there, but a couple of things I'd like to pick up on before Laura starts talking is you don't have to be a business to make a difference. So whilst I was asking about entrepreneurs, kind of like what Marion and Hugh were saying earlier on, is just like daily decisions that you make, like taking the bus, like bringing lunch with you, that sort of thing globally might start making an impact. Laura, can you add anything else into that? What considerations that young entrepreneurs should have for the blue economies?
Yep, I think there are many good points there. And I also think that, like you said before, it's not just entrepreneurs. Many people don't have access to coastal communities directly. but as a consumer, everyone buys things, and there's a lot of purchasing power in what you buy, where you buy it from. So helping local businesses, for one, reduces the transport and eco footprint in general. And also things like the, so before, for other areas, we had the fair trade stickers and also the Rainforest Alliance. These kind of ethical branding can really help start a business to just create that image of being sustainable, and using those kind of paths to kind of to brand yourself as someone who's looking into sustainability can help both small businesses and also consumers who want to make a change, want to do better, but may not be completely understanding of every single process in making and selling the product.
So looking at accreditation,
yeah,
what sort of symbols you can get next to your name to prove that you're actually doing the right thing. Yeah. Well, we're sort of talking a little bit about my next polling question. So I'm going to ask a question out to the room, and we've just spoken about some optimistic dreams for the future, about how we as individuals can make a difference, but let's be realistic. So with this next poll question, it is, how far do you agree or disagree with this statement? Individuals, you and me, can make a real positive impact on the world's oceans. Agree, disagree? Individuals. So is it the job of the individual? Is it really actually more impactful if big business do it? Facebook's come up a couple of times tonight. The big conglomerates of the world. I'll leave this open for 60 seconds and let some ideas fly through. So it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because one person doesn't make a huge amount of difference, but loads of people doing the same thing, maybe. Maybe. Cool, that is the minute. I'm going to end that poll and share those results. So the most people just agree with that statement rather than strongly agreeing with that one. So I managed to kill a little bit of optimism while I was talking there, but not too much, which is quite nice. So I'm going to throw this over to Laura. What do you think? What are your thoughts on those results? Surprised? Not surprised?
I think they're looking pretty positive, like you said, even though it was a realistic, I mean, there's very strong arguments for both sides. And it's true that governments and corporations can do so much change. But I think a lot of people are thinking that a lot of this reflects attitudes of us all. And it's just, even if it's a tiny piece of change, everyone doing that can just push the tide for it. And I think that's, instead of just kind of blaming them for not making change, it's really the only path to be positive and look forward to the future and try to do our best. So I think we all agree that we as individuals can make a change.
Nice. And I think I'm going to give you 10 bonus points for using the phrase push the tide in a discussion about the sea. Well done, just well done. So we're talking a lot about what individuals can do in our regional environments. Laura, you suggested buying locally. Sylvain, you're educating people on management on a day-to-day basis through your game. But I guess my question is, what can entrepreneurs and just the everyday person do? What is the actual actionable things that they can do over the next 10 years to turn things like rising sea levels, plastics in our ocean, to stop looking at those as challenges and to start looking at those as opportunities? What can we do? So Sylvain, I'll go to you first. What can entrepreneurs do?
Ahora mismo, right now, I have this problem And this problem is something that I think that we can do many things. Let's say that tomorrow someone comes with an amazing project and is good at communicating. Some project that covers everything, covers internet, covers sustainability. I like this. I like to have all the resources in this kind of project. So if someone, some freelancer or some individual has a good idea for his or her project, they need to know, first of all, what are the problems that they need to go for. And I believe that a good thing to do is to review the production method or all the process. I am giving again the example of blue diplomacy. First of all, we had to have a standardization, right, of all the materials that we were using. And the second thing is that the final product, the game itself, had to be co-responsible. So in my head, I had a bit of a problem, right? Because we had some rules on the materials that we could use, right? And as I said, we've been using resins and other materials, but so some of the materials were not very co-responsible for me. Maybe they were not the right materials if we're thinking in a sustainable way, right? So I had a bit of a dilemma, and then anyway, we moved forward, and just to say that sometimes you need to be able to communicate well your project. I don't know if I'm in myself clear, but that's what I want to say. Communication is key. Sometimes you are faced with some rules that you have to comply with.
Thank you very much, Sylvain. Laura, I'm going to throw that over to you as well. If you have anything you can add. I mean, Laura, like I think most of us on this call, is based coastally. We're living right on the coast. We're the Atlantic Youth Creative Hubs, Atlantic being the key word. So, well, I guess I'm just drawing some parallels between us all. Laura, what do you think?
Yep, I think that a lot of, like Sylvain said, communication is so important with the rise of the internet and especially social media and young people. So many of these global issues can become local just by kind of spreading the word, and it's so easy to make a post about it or just make yourself aware about it, and just more and more people are seeing how what affects one place, it's not just a rural island off the coast of Asia, it affects everyone else as well. We're all kind of interconnected in this way. And I mean, talk is cheap, but also, again, this is kind of the awareness that you're spreading. And as entrepreneurs, I think that's one of the key roles you play in kind of being at the forefront of building the momentum here, and also making these issues personal for the community so more people can come together to solve them.
Nice one. Thank you very much, Laura. That is the end of the second theme of this evening of blue economies, but we have about 10-15 minutes left. So I'm going to throw options out to the audience again. Any questions that you might have? I'm going to, while you're thinking about that, I'm going to dip back to a question that Stacey asked earlier on that some wonderful audience member has translated for me in the meantime. So the question from Stacey is about how we can use creativity and creative problem solving in our day-to-day lives. Yeah, how can we link it all in with just our general behavior? So let's go to Hugh. What are your thoughts on that one?
Using creativity in everyday lives. Oh, that's such a big question. I think I guess it's just sort of thinking from personal experience about, I think, reframing your perception of things and not getting stuck in looking at things the same way. And I think that's so easily done with, especially with COVID, the fact we're always on our screens, we're always taking in information at such a pace that it's actually extremely difficult, at least in my own experience, to process even like 5% of the information that I take in on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can look at things in different ways unless you do take the time to process things and therefore kind of maybe see them in a bit more depth at a slightly higher resolution and maybe notice patterns or interesting things that you wouldn't have otherwise. So I think for me, I'm not sure about how to be more creative, but I think you can allow yourself to have the potential to see things differently if you try and take more time to process the amount of information you take in, rather than just be always taking information in, which I guess is counterintuitive, especially if you're developing ideas. You're just so hungry for ideas and to see what other people are doing and where's the funding and who's doing what and how can I get to the next stage. You're just taking in so much information and the internet's so abundant with it, but you don't really get the opportunity to really just sit down and figure out your own opinion about things. So I guess in a way, my idea would be just go for a walk first thing in the morning and don't wear any headphones. I've just noticed with I've realized that I'm addicted to having my headphones on and I'm always listening to something, even if I'm out for a walk. And that kind of makes the walk a bit pointless because I've not really actually mentally changed my state of mind in any way. I've just taken a computer with me. So yeah, I guess time without technology is the only thing that I can think of on the spot.
That's a great answer. Thank you, Hugh. And I guess being based down in Devon, it's a lot easier to get out into nature. But if you're in a big city, it might be a little bit harder to get away from technology, like even lights, operators, road crossings. You're around tech all the time. So we've got another question in from Jacob Coburn, who asks, how do we ensure that what we have discussed today leads to inclusive growth? And I'm going to take this question here, because part of what we're putting together from these 3 events tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday is a proposal of 30 suggestions that we should all start abiding by for the year 2030 to have a brighter, more creative, more sustainable future. So what I will do off the back of suggesting that, because I realise, Jacob, that is just quite a woolly answer for you, is to let's throw it out to the room. What do you all at the Hive Mind, if you have a thought of something we've discussed today or something related to sustainability or our oceans that you think we should do, an action that you think we should take, or an action that you think we shouldn't take over the next 10 years, pop it into the chat. Feel free to write something in there. I'm going to leave it for a minute or so and just to see what comes up. It might just be repeating something that any of our speakers this evening have mentioned. For example, I'm going to say, take the bus more. Thank you, Sylvain. I'm going to pop that one in there just to get the conversation rolling. So hopefully, if you have any ideas, you can write them into that chat. And what we will do is, if we get enough good ones, we will pop them onto our Agenda 2030, and hopefully maybe you can see your suggestion on our final document, which, Jacob, thank you for your question, will help to lead to inclusive growth and implementing the discussions that we're actually having. I think I'm right in saying as well that the Agenda 2030 will be shared with various policymakers sent over to the European Commission. I might be right in saying that. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm not. And hopefully it will reach people and be shared for us all to follow. So buy less, reuse more. Love that. Love that. Any other ideas from people? Oh yeah, love that. Oh, so many good things coming in all at once. Wowee. Wonderful. Okay, so any of our speakers, let's go to Mariam. Can you have a look at one of the messages that we've just come through and just give your opinions on one of those?
I would just come back to the question, which is, to be honest with you, I think there will have some victim in this changement. I mean, there is, like we could see during the pandemic, I don't know if in England, but in the naval industry, a lot of people lose their job. And I don't know if it's a good answer, but just what I want to say, yeah, of course, it cannot be completely inclusive, but this is for the future generation. And yes, there will be victim as every big changement during the history. And yeah, I'm afraid they will be victim of it for financial support. And I hope some organization will maybe try to take care of it by maybe help them to change of job, to learn new thing, and be a part of the changement, and just give them some values. And we really need the political group to be with us for it. I think it's my answer.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you very much, Marion. That was yeah, a bit of a call to arms, I think. Let's get the politics involved. So we're into the last 5 minutes of the session, so I think it's a good time to wrap it up. Thank you so much to all of the speakers, Hugh, Sylvain, Marion, Laura. Thank you so much for all of your expertise and your insight. Thank you very much to Gwinnell's cat for just providing the best photo bomb of the evening. We're now going to break off from the Zoom. The speakers are going to stay and we're going to discuss everything we spoke about this evening and put together 10 concrete propositions back to what Jacob was asking, to make it some real solid, actionable advice. And we're going to use some of your suggestions in the chat as well for that one. So please remember to come along on Thursday, the 25th. There is going to be a big presentation of all 30 propositions from all of our challenge events. So please come along on Thursday for that one. As a quick straw poll, I'm going to do a quick guesswork here. Who in this Zoom call is under the age of 30? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. If you're under the age of 30, on the reactions feature, just click a yes. If you're under the age of 30, and we'll just see how many people can get involved with that one, just so we can kind of see for young people for the future kind of thing. All righty. If you've enjoyed the discussion this evening, I would like to invite everyone to check out the registrations page for it's the Eventbrite for the Youth Summit as a whole. So you can see the event coming up for tomorrow night. You can see the event for Wednesday, Thursday's event. There you'll also see registration for our virtual exhibition, which is a huge showcase of work of young people that have been involved in the AYCH project over the last few years. And actually, we have Sylvain, we have Hugh, and we have Laura all exhibiting in that space as well. So if you want to get behind Sylvain's game, and you can hear it in his own words, there's a little audio recording of Sylvain in the room for Brest Metropole. Or if you want to see Laura's sustainable, inclusive water bottle drinking attachment, there's a big 3D model there that you can walk around and see and interact with. So check out the virtual exhibition. You can get to that through the Eventbrite registration page. I'll also, God, there's so many announcements. I will also let you know that the platform for the Youth Summit, our website, is now up and live. The website address for that one is AYCH-2030.eu. So someone can pop that into the chat you can follow that link for us there. Also, the link to the Eventbrite registration will be popped into the chat as well. If someone could do that while I'm talking, you can follow that link out. And that's it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. To everyone that contributed and asked your questions. A big thank you to Marion and Alice from Brest Metropole, who have helped to organise this one, and Richard from Space, to the translators, and to everyone else that's been involved. Feel free to sign off and enjoy the rest of your Monday evening. The speakers will stay on the Zoom call, and we will get down into the nitty-gritty of how we can make this a brighter future. So thank you, everyone. Good night, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow.